Hey everybody, Kyle Goethe here from GoatFilmReviews.com and the Goat Film Reviews YouTube channel, and we're going to take the continuing look at my physical media collection. Today's focus is on D. So we're going to start with everything that I own, starting with the letter D. And we begin with something I'm not totally ashamed of owning, but Daddy's Home 2. So let me be honest, I don't like the first Daddy's Home very much. I don't think it's a very good movie. Daddy's Home 2 is just kind of in that so bad it's good territory. I know it's terrible, but I get a lot of laughs out of the people trying to relate to their parents subgenre. So Daddy's Home 2 is a movie that I watched with my wife. We had a few too many drinks one Christmas season and went to see this at the theater. Super late night one night. And I enjoyed the heck out of it. I thought it was so silly and goofy and dumb, but still funny at the same time. So I'm definitely not ashamed, but a little ashamed. This also came with a digital copy for Daddy's Home 1, so I could give that another try, because like I said, I did not like Daddy's Home 1. Alright, up next we have the Daimajin trilogy. This has 3 films. It's got Daimajin. It also has Return of Daimajin, and it has Wrath of Daimajin. So it's the 3 films from that. It's an Arrow video box set. There's an unboxing on the channel for it, as well as over on Kyle and Nick on Film. I covered the first film for my Saturday Scares with Kyle series, so check that out. We also have Dallas Buyers Club. That's the Blu-ray for that film right there. Really great performances from Matthew McConaughey, Jared Leto. I think it's a really solid directorial effort from a director that I was not aware of when the movie came out, and ended up making just a big splash with that one. So this next here is kind of a peculiar one. It's a Vintage Cult Madness set. This I got for super cheap. I think it was actually during that collection that I had gotten at that house. This comes with 4 films: Damaged Lives, Sex Madness, Test Tube Babies, and She Shoulda Said No. I don't know if any of these are good. I assume they're probably all terrible, but it was an interesting box set that I haven't had a chance to dive into. Up next we have The Darkest Hour. This is not the Gary Oldman film, Darkest Hour. This is the what's the actor's name who played Speed Racer? Why am I blanking on that? Emil Hirsch. Movie where they fight aliens in Russia, I believe it is. It's not good. I got it because I have a 3D TV and a 3D Blu-ray player. I used to, and I thought maybe it'd be better if I watched it in 3D. It's not a good movie though. Up next we have Dark Ride. This is from the After Dark Horror Fest. This is one of the 8 films to die for, they called them. Really great marketing, because none of those movies are all that great. So we also have Dark Shadows. This is one of those movies that I think very much eschews the Dark Shadows TV show, in that it's not really like that at all. But I still kind of enjoyed how they were making fun of it while at the same time like honoring it. I think it's one of Tim Burton's more underrated directorial films. So up next we have The Dark Tower. I saw the movie before I had actually finished reading the book series, which is weird because it's kind of a sequel to the books, which is a terrible idea, because more often than not, your film goers are a larger group of people than your book readers. So I don't know who this is for. It was also a very expensive movie. So like you couldn't just make this as like an indie film and make people have to see the book. You had to bring people in. So this just a very odd movie, and it should have been much longer. It should have been more based in the books. I'm excited to see Mike Flanagan's version of that story. Next we have Date Night. Date Night. Cute little rom-com from Sean Levy. Features Steve Carell and Tina Fey on they've kind of like lost their mojo in their relationships. They go on a date night, end up in this like crazy action movie essentially. Another odd one, I don't know anything about this movie, but Dave Barry's Complete Guide to Guys. I'm a fan of Dave Barry the writer, so I've never seen this like movie or whatever it really is, but I came across it from Mr. Movies in my hometown. And they had Dave Barry's Complete Guide to Guys, the movie, and I have not watched it yet. But any movie that has John Cleese and Dan Marino as the 2 leads on the top, at the very least, worth checking out. All right, up next we've got, this is my sealed Criterion edition of David Lean Directs Noel Coward. Sorry, this episode seems a little bit darker than most. I'm trying to get the lighting right here. Sorry, guys. This has 4 movies: In Which We Serve, This Happy Breed, Blithe Spirit, and Brief Encounter. I think the only David Lean I've ever seen is probably Lawrence of Arabia. So those are 4 films that I should get to as soon as I can. Over here we have David Lynch, The Art Life. This is actually a Criterion commissioned documentary about David Lynch. It's interesting. I think it works better as a companion piece as opposed to like just watching it on its own. I watched this very, very early on in my appreciation of David Lynch, and it didn't hit me as well as it does later on when I've seen enough of his works. So it's not something like, if you're like, is David Lynch for me? That documentary is not going to convince you. But it's a pretty good little doc all the same. All right, we've got The Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons. I read the books for these ones, and so I was really excited for the movies. The movies have never lived up to the potential of the books, but I think Angels and Demons is the better of the 2 films, and I think Angels and Demons, the book, is the better of the 2 books as well. So it's not entirely surprising in that way. We have Dawn of the Dead, the remake. The original one's coming up. It's with Night of the Living Dead over in the ends. But this is the remake. This is the unrated director's cut, of course. Zack Snyder's first film. You know, people, I think I've gotten some people that think that I somehow don't like Zack Snyder because I didn't review his Rebel Moon films very highly, and because I agree that he probably shouldn't be working in DC because he just wasn't capturing enough, you know, of what's going on there. Plus, my denigrations to him aren't so much that I didn't like his movies that he made for DC. It was more about I just think like we're past it. We've moved past it now, and I think it's better to see him making movies that he wants to make. Over here we have The Day After Tomorrow. Super cheesy, very dumb, but I think it gets across what it's supposed to in terms of climate change, although it's been 20 years and we really haven't made any strong movement in one way or the other. Daybreakers. This is a really cool little vampire film where it's actually about the vampires. Like, they've taken over society, but now their food supply is running low. They're starting to get sick. They've got a number of problems with their species, and so they actually have to hunt down like one of the few remaining humans in order to help them. Pretty cool little movie. This right here is the Day of the Dead remake. So this is the second, or I guess the first remake of Day of the Dead, the second Day of the Dead movie, I guess, if you don't count the sequel to it's very confusing. This is the one Steve Miner directed. I've never been able to watch it all the way through. Day of the Dead, for those of you guys that have followed me for any amount of time, I love Day of the Dead. It is my favorite of Romero's zombie films. It's my favorite Romero film. It's one of my favorite horror films ever. So watching one like that and knowing that Steve Miner directed it, and you know, Jeffrey Reddick wrote the film, how is it that bad? Like, it's so sad. It's so sad. Slightly better, but still terrible, is Day of the Dead Bloodline. This is the second remake, the third overall, fourth if you count Day of the Dead 2 Contagion, but I don't have that movie, and that one's better. It's more watchable, but it's still better than Steve Miner's film. Doesn't really make it good. Over here we have The Day the Earth Stood Still, the 1951 original film. I got that one, I think it was when, maybe it was Blockbuster closed or Hollywood Video. That one surprised the hell out of me because I'd never seen it at that point, and I got it just because it's, you know, The Day the Earth Stood Still. And wow, 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 wow. What a terrific science fiction film. That might be on my list of top science fiction films ever. I adore Day the Earth Stood Still. We have Dazed and Confused on DVD right there. I think that's actually my wife's copy. I was always more of a Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and she was more of a Dazed and Confused person, and so we work well together. But that doesn't mean I don't like Dazed and Confused. I just prefer the other one. From when Hollywood Video closed, it's a dance flick. This is another movie kind of like Day of the Dead where I shouldn't be surprised that it's as bad as it is. Also, it's out of order. That's frustrating. So, yeah, dance flick. That movie is terrible. How are these out of order? That's frustrating. Yeah, because we have Dances with Wolves here. So, I've never seen this movie all the way through. We watched a bunch of it in school for various reasons, and I wanted to get the complete edition of it to check it out. Dane Cook's Vicious Circle. Back from that time period when Dane Cook was like all the rage for comedy. I still like the special. Although I'm a little bit less in on that kind of a style of comedy. We have The Daredevil, director's cut. I haven't actually watched the director's cut. I've only seen the theatrical version of the film. And I didn't like that, but I've been told the director's cut is significantly better. Another great director's cut, Dark City. I've never seen the original cut of this as well, but I remember being told that like this is a just more polished, what we're trying to aim for kind of edition of the film. Up next we have The Dark Crystal. I've actually only seen this one once after I got the 4K of the film. And again, I'm kind of more of a Labyrinth guy, but Dark Crystal's a really cool little movie. I appreciate that there was a Jim Henson fantasy epic that didn't have any human beings in it. I think that's pretty cool. So we also have the Dark Knight trilogy on 4K. So of course this is Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. Fun fact, the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight films also includes an animated film that Nolan wasn't really involved with, but it was called Batman Gotham Knight. I think we hit it up in the B's in that Batman collection as well. It actually takes place between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. I like it. It's pretty cool. All right, up next we have the Darkman trilogy, which has Darkman, Darkman 2, The Return of Durant, and Darkman 3, Die Darkman Die. Original Darkman, it's a pretty cool little Sam Raimi film. I think he tried to get the rights to The Shadow and couldn't get them, so he made his own superhero. Very Sam Raimi thing to do. It also has the 2 sequels that don't feature Liam Neeson in the lead role. It's Arnold Vosloo, and they're just not as good. I just don't think Vosloo is the right casting choice for those sequels. All right, next we have Dead Birds. This has Henry Thomas in it, who was in E.T., of course, and kind of re-rose to fame with Mike Flanagan working with him. I've never seen it all the way through. I had trouble getting through it the first time. I think I got it when Hollywood Video closed. We have on Arrow Video trilogy, the Dead or Alive trilogy of films. This has the original Dead or Alive 2 Birds, and Dead or Alive Final. Takashi Miike's trilogy of action films. I honestly don't know a thing about them, so I'm not going to waste any time talking about what I don't know. Dead Silence. Being a James Wan fan for as long as I have been, Dead Silence has been kind of one of those mainstays that I go back to pretty frequently. It's aged a little bit worse for wear in terms of, I think he's just done a lot more better work since that time. That one hinges pretty heavily on the twist, and I like the twist, but it's very much a movie leading towards a twist. All right, next we have Dead Snow. That's right, it's a Nazi zombie movie. And we also have Dead Snow 2, Red versus Dead. I don't know if we're going to get the third one because the main actor who's in both those films passed away, sadly. So, but yeah, they're Nazi zombie movies. And the director of the films, Tommy Wirkola, actually has kind of made it a little bit bigger in America, doing things like Violent Night. I think he directed Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. Is that what that one's called? He's done a couple of movies, some worse for wear, some better, but the Dead Snow movies are pretty fun all the same. All right, we have The Dead Zone, one of the best Stephen King books, and I think one of the best adaptations of Stephen King's work, especially when we're talking for the screen. I don't really know where this came from, but it's a Dean Martin Celebrity Roast DVD. Take with that what you will. Okay, so we have Death Race. That's the remake. The Steelbook thing. I gotta do the Steelbook thing. Oh, they do. Oh yeah, Steelbook. Oh. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that is. We also have a DVD of Death Race 2. We also have a used copy. Yikes. Of Death Race 3 Inferno. These are the remake series films. And Death Race Beyond Anarchy. I have only seen the first 2. They're entertaining enough. I mean, they kind of share that spirit of what the original film was. They're a little bit more self-serious. They got that Paul W.S. Anderson feeling to them. But like both of them they're all pretty silly, cheesy movies. I also have here Death Race 2050. This is the Roger Corman produced sequel to the original film. I have a digital version of Death Race 2000. It was just a harder film to find when I was looking for it. So, Death Sentence. Again, I think it's an underrated James Wan film. Hasn't aged as well on rewatches, but I like the vengeance style that he's going for with that. It's got very much Death Wish vibes, and I believe it's based on a book that was a sequel to the Death Wish book. I believe so. Here we have Deathstroke, Knights and Dragons. It's right there. Knights and Dragons. That was, I think it was a web series that they kind of clumped into making a movie with it. It's definitely one of the weaker DC animated films in my mind. Speaking of Death Wish, we have Death Wish. And we also have Death Wish 2, Death Wish 3, and Death Wish 4, The Crackdown. I've never seen a Death Wish film, so I'm not going to waste my time trying to convince anybody to watch them because I don't know if they're good or not. Here's one that definitely, I bought this thinking this movie was good. I saw it and I must have liked it in the theater, but I loathe this movie now. Deck the Halls. It's about two competing neighbors who want to have a bigger version of their Christmas lights, and it's just not funny. It's just not funny. All right, up next we have Deep Impact. I think I like that better than Armageddon. I'm going to be real with you. I think Deep Impact hits harder. No pun intended. But yeah, definitely a sibling film to that one. Over here we have Deepwater Horizon, one of the better Peter Berg, Mark Wahlberg collaborations. And then we have The Deer Hunter, which I've never seen yet. I've been trying to get time to watch that one, but it being 3 hours, I think I've spieled about that before. Longer movies, you don't always get the time to squeeze those in. And we also have the DVD of Defending Your Life. You know what's crazy is I've got a couple of Albert Brooks movies, and I've never actually watched something he's directed. So Defending Your Life, that's the one he did with Meryl Streep, so it's kind of a peculiar, interesting pairing, but I'd like to finally get the time to sit down and watch that one. All right, moving on, we have Definitely Maybe. Cute little rom-com, one of the ones that I dug from a very young age, the idea that this dad is telling his daughter how he met their mother, but he's not giving them the right names, so like the daughter has to suss out which one of these potential mothers was the one. In hindsight, it kind of makes the dad a little sleazy, but I don't know. It worked for me when I was younger. Maybe it wouldn't work as well rewatching. Then I've just got some Def Leppard stuff. Def Leppard's my favorite band, so we have their music video collection. I have their Behind the Music. And I have their Crossroads with Taylor Swift back when she was like straight up country only. That was a CMT thing. Let's see what else we have here. We have Deja Vu. This is one of, I think, maybe one of Tony Scott's most underrated films. It's about Denzel Washington and a bunch of people have a machine that can let them look just slightly into the future. Or be able to look at events in the past, but like from angles they shouldn't normally have, you know, and be able to kind of solve mysteries in that way. And so it's a pretty cool little, yeah, it's a cool little thriller, I think. Let's see here. We have Decalogue. This was a 10-part kind of mini-series that Krzysztof Kieslowski made for Polish television. Oh, it's a 12-part, my mistake, 12-part. And it draws from the Ten Commandments. I think that's why I was thinking that way. And I've never seen it, but it actually comes with the short films as well. But it is a really cool box set of this that came, I think I picked this up from Barnes & Noble. That's why it's got that Barnes & Noble sticker on it. But if it's a Criterion box set, it's in my collection. Up next we have Deliverance, What Really Did Happen on the Cohahlawasi River. This is a movie my dad introduced me to. I think he didn't have a lot of movies, but he had Deliverance on DVD, so I checked that one out. A really thrilling survival story with some truly disturbing elements that are at play. It's a hard movie to watch at times, but it's incredibly tense. It's incredibly action-packed. Up next, we have Demetri Martin's Person. I don't have a ton of like comedy specials, but I like Demetri Martin quite a bit. This next set is under D for Demolition Man, but it also has Over the Top and Tango and Cash. I've never seen any of those three movies. We have Dennis Miller's The Raw Feed. It's not great. It's very, I mean, Dennis Miller is very hit or miss, and I think with time his specials lose power because they're all based in current events, so it's hard to have that staying power with rewatchability. Up next we have Dennis the Menace. This is one of the seminal films from when I was a kid. I knew about Dennis the Menace from this movie, more so than the comics, more so than any cartoons, more so than the old TV show. That was my Dennis the Menace. And it had Walter Matthau from Grumpy Old Men, so that was a huge deal for me. Minnesotan kids, we loved Walter Matthau from Grumpy Old Men. So up next we have The Dentist and The Dentist 2. This is another Vestron video set, and it's again one where I was convinced to buy it because of the Vestron Collector's Edition more than the actual movies. I'd only seen the first one when I got this, and I absolutely despised it. I didn't like the first one at all. On rewatch, it's not as despised, but it's still not great. I think the second one's a little bit of a step in the right direction, but I don't think either of those movies is very good. But since I have a fear of dentists, they are effectively disturbing. Up next, we have another triple feature. This is a Martin Scorsese one. We have The Departed, Goodfellas, and The Aviator. I have had all three of those movies on DVD, and now they're all on Blu-ray and together. Departed, I think it's weird to say I think it's underrated, but it gets so much like vitriol now from Martin Scorsese fans because of one shot at the end of the movie. Like it's ridiculous. Goodfellas, an absolute classic. Again, I've always been more of a Casino guy, but Goodfellas it's impossible to not like that movie, although I don't think my wife likes it very much. And then The Aviator, that's actually one of the rare Martin Scorsese films I don't care for that much. First time I watched it, didn't like it. Second time, I liked it a little bit more, but I don't have the drive to watch The Aviator ever. So we have The Descendants. I bought this one, no, it wasn't before it was. I bought this after it got all the awards attention and just didn't get around to watching it. Oh, here's a cool one. Desperation. This is a Stephen King adaptation of a novel that actually kind of had like a twin novel. Basically in the late 90s, mid-90s, Stephen King published two back-to-back books, one as Stephen King called Desperation, and one as Richard Bachman called The Regulators. Both books what's weird about them is they have the same kind of image flowing from one cover to the next. And they're connected, but not really. It's almost like they're twinners, if you will, if you know your Stephen King lingo. Both books feature the entire same cast of characters, but just everyone is drastically different. And some of them are different ages, different people, but they're like the same names on different characters. It's a peculiar combination. I always thought that should happen with this. Mick Garris should make Desperation the movie and then make The Regulators the movie, and that didn't happen. But this is a really cool Stephen King novel. I think the movie is pretty solid. It's a TV movie, so it's a little bit lower budget, but I think Mick Garris directs the hell out of this one. I think it's one of Mick Garris's better Stephen King adaptations, and I really like a lot of what he did. All right, we've got some Minions. Minions 1 on 4K. Minions The Rise of Gru on 4K. And then we have Despicable Me 1, 2, and 3 on 4K. I only dislike one of the movies in this franchise. I dislike Minions The Rise of Gru. I think it's boring, dull, and kind of stupid. And the fourth Despicable Me that's out now is one I don't care for that much. That's kind of just, it's nothing burger to me. It's a lot of funny scenes, but not any like cohesive storytelling. But for the most part, the original trilogy I like. I do like Minions, the original film. I think it's a great almost silent film, kind of, because the characters don't speak English. So they speak their own language that's never translated. So we kind of get like a little bit of like a silent film vibe from that one. Yeah. And if you're wondering why I said Minions, I don't know why I always think about this, but there was a SNL clip that had Sofia Vergara, played by someone who was trying to do the Minions. She was in a Star Wars clip. They were basically auditioning other people for the new Star Wars film with J.J. Abrams, and she was on there and she was like, "Is this the one with Minions? I love Minions." And now I basically will never not think of that whenever I'm watching Minions. She's actually in the fourth one, so even better. This one is a Scream Factory double feature. It's Destroyer and Edge of Sanity. I've seen both of these, both featuring Anthony Perkins. Honestly, I couldn't tell you much about either one. I thought they were both kind of dull, but I'll revisit them eventually. I like covering a lot of the weirder movies that in my collection on Kyle and Films Saturday Scares with Kyle, so I'm sure we'll get to that eventually. Oh, on a powerhouse horror film, The Devil's Advocate. I think this is one of the greatest horror films, especially one of the greatest horror performances. Al Pacino in this movie is incredible, particularly that last 30 minutes where he gets to really just go all out. This movie is great, and I don't understand why we don't recognize it for its greatness. Heck, this still has that weird, like, cardboard case thing. Give this movie a 4K release and I am there for it. He's laughing, he's sick. Anyway, Devil's Advocate is fantastic. I love it as a horror movie. I love it as a legal thriller. I think Keanu Reeves does some of his best work in that film. Charlize Theron is just she's so tragic in the movie. Devil's Advocate is great. If you haven't seen it because you think it's either not a horror film or not a good film, I think you should check it out because I think Devil's Advocate will surprise you. All right, up next, another, it's a midnight movie double feature. It's Devils of Darkness and Witchcraft. Now, I haven't seen Witchcraft yet. I've watched Devils of Darkness. It's not good. It's not good. The end of the movie's kind of cool looking, but it is, I did an episode of Scary Saturdays, or Saturday Scares with Kyle over on the Kyle and Nikon Film channel. You can check out that video, but Devils of Darkness, incredibly dull. Incredibly dull. And you can tell it's kind of like trying to be a Hammer film, but it's not made by Hammer. Yeah, not a good one. Dial M for Murder, one of the few classic Hitchcocks that I have not seen. Finally got a copy of it, so I will be checking it out. We did our countdown for patrons of top Alfred Hitchcock films, and I just couldn't get a copy of Dial M for Murder to save my life. So, have it now. I don't know why I have these ones, though. Diary of a Wimpy Kid. This is 1, 2, and 3, so it's Roderick Rules and Dog Days. And also Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Long Haul. I don't know why I have them, to be honest. I don't know where they came from, but they're there. Dick Tracy. Fun fact, I didn't actually watch this until I was like late teens, but I had all of the trading cards. I had a ton of the trading cards in the movie. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, every major movie would get like a trading card set where you try to get like all 100 images from the film, and they'd have fun facts and stuff on the back of them. Dick Tracy, I had a lot of them. I also had a lot of Batman Returns. It's kind of a big deal, you know? All right, we have the Die Hard collections. This is all 5 Die Hard films, so it's Die Hard, Die Hard 2, Die Harder, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Live Free or Die Hard, and A Good Day to Die Hard. I've seen the first 4 of these. In fact, I watched 1, 2, and 3 in anticipation of the 4th film because we were driving out of town to check it out, me and some friends. And the 5th one came out, and I just heard terrible things about it. I didn't really want to watch it. I will see it eventually. I will. Another Criterion box set here. This is Dietrich and von Sternberg in Hollywood. Now, I've seen the 3 von Sternberg films, the silent films that were in a previous collection I showed off earlier. This one has Morocco, Dishonored, Shanghai Express, Blonde Venus, The Scarlet Empress, and The Devil is a Woman. So these are the 6 films that they made together in Hollywood, Marlene Dietrich and Joseph von Sternberg. Cool collection. Have not opened it yet. Have not checked it out yet. But I like the silent von Sternberg films I'd seen. The Dilemma. I got it because it was a comedy directed by Ron Howard, more so than for the actors involved. But I thought it was a funny enough concept that would be good to look at, and I never actually got around to watching it. Dinosaur. I think kind of an underrated Walt Disney movie. I don't think it is a tremendous achievement, but because it was one of their like first attempts outside of Pixar to do like the digital animation, I remember liking it quite a bit. It's been a long time since I've seen it, so maybe that's changed. But we have Dirty Dancing on Blu-ray. Dirty Dancing is a movie I watched for the first time on my computer. I didn't do that very often, but back during the days where Hulu was a .com and not an app, and you had to watch things on your computer, I watched Dirty Dancing on my computer. That one back to back with like St. Elmo's Fire. All right, we have the Dirty Harry collection. I've only seen the first one, Dirty Harry, but it also has Magnum Force, The Enforcer, Sudden Impact, and The Deadpool. I really liked the original Dirty Harry. We watched it during the pandemic. It was just if you're going to be stuck inside, you can watch the movies you've never seen before. All right, we got Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, another one I haven't seen. Got it because I love Steve Barton, but haven't seen it yet. The Disaster Artist. This is I'd seen The Room a couple of times. I really enjoy watching The Room. I don't enjoy The Room, but I enjoy watching The Room with other people. And the behind the scenes story of it, I hope that this is as true as possible because it's a pretty wild background on these 2 guys who thought they really could do it, you know. District 9, the best Neil Blomkamp film. It's almost like, I don't know. I think he's done well with some of the other things I've seen, but this is clearly his best work. Disturbia. I saw this before Rear Window. It might have actually been the same day as I saw Live Free or Die Hard. We would drive to Grand Forks because it was a bigger town than our small town, and we would watch 3 movies. We'd go and we'd triple feature. It would be great. I think this one is one of them. Disturbia, produced by Steven Spielberg. It's like a remake of Rear Window, but for teens. I think it's still pretty compelling stuff. It's a good thriller. It is from DJ Caruso, who also did Taking Lives, Eagle Eye. He's done some other works throughout the past couple of years that have been pretty interesting to watch. I don't like this Blu-ray because it looks digitized at the bottom. This quote down here is really it looks like it came off a home printer. Django Unchained. This is the Steelbook edition. Oh. It has a bonus disc in it as well. Huh. Stars of Django at Comic-Con. I think this one even came with the soundtrack. This was a really great Target edition of that movie. Dodgeball, a true underdog story. Had to work pretty hard to not get the unrated version, because I'll be honest with you, every movie in this time period had an unrated version. I hated the unrated version of this one. There was something about when they added like the most obscenities they could, like the hardest edged obscenities to the jokes, that didn't work as well. I thought the movie was funnier when it was like hinting at the obscenity. As soon as they start dropping like some of the harder words, the ones that you can't get away with as often in a movie, the jokes didn't land as well. All right, we've got Dog Day Afternoon. This was a clearance at half price books. That's why I picked it up. But it's Dog Day Afternoon, so I'm sure I would like it. And we have A Dog's Purpose and A Dog's Journey. I think these ones ended up just being, if I see movies for like $2 on Black Friday, I'm probably picking them up. I'll be honest with you, I probably am. And that was the case with, I think, these two movies. They used to do that at Walmart all the time, is they'd have like the $2 DVDs. And if I hadn't seen them yet, I was probably going to pick them up because it was just as cheap as renting them, maybe cheaper to own them. So that was the case with those two films. All right, next we have Dolan's Cadillac on Blu-ray. This is another one that's based on the story by Stephen King. Dolan's Cadillac is a smaller story. It's from one of his later, I think maybe Everything's Eventual. The story's pretty cool. The movie it tells the story pretty well, adapted pretty well, but it's a little low end. And it's just kind of grimy looking. I don't like the cinematography, the color palette that's chosen for the film. Dolly Dearest. This one I got because it was out of print. I saw it at a used store for actually really cheap. Got it because it was out of print. I also almost had a chance to meet Denise Crosby, who's the star of this one. And so I thought it'd be fun to have her sign Dolly Dearest as opposed to anything else. It would be fun to just dive into that one. Don John. Haven't seen it. Picked it up after the great reviews. Let's see here. Another one of these Universal Pictures like multi-packs. But I like them because they have a theme. The Don Knotts Reluctant Hero Pack. This is the Ghost and Mr. Chicken, the Reluctant Astronaut, the Shakiest Gun in the West, and the Love God. Haven't seen any of them. I like Don Knotts, though. I think I would like them. All right, we have Donnie Darko. And yeah, I think, well, maybe S. Darko is somewhere else around here. We have Donnie Darko, though. This was one, again, first time watching it, hated the movie. And I think I just hated the ending so much. On rewatch, it works much better for me. I still don't dig Donnie Darko, but it's a better movie than I gave it credit for initially. We have Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. This is the Guillermo del Toro produced remake of the film directed by Troy Nixey. This is not the 70s one. This is the remake. And it's okay. It's not bad. Yeah, I like Jamie, my wife, really enjoyed this one for a while. We watched that frequently. I think it would have been better if Del Toro had been directing it himself. I don't think Troy Nixey had like fully formed his idea yet. But it is entertaining enough. Don't be a menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. I think is a very, very goofy and weird I don't want to say best movie from the Wayans brothers, and they didn't direct this one, but I think it does kind of chew on the 90s, basically 90s black dramas of the time, and how they all kind of like fit this mold because it was the only thing Hollywood would let them produce. I think it's a very funny movie. Very stupid, though. You have to be really into the stupid comedy because the Wayans brothers have never been like the high art of comedy. We have Don't Breathe. And we have Don't Breathe 2. You know what we need now in society is we need more movies that tell people to shut the hell up in the theater. Because that was really nice back in 2016, that first one? And The Quiet Place did that too when that one came out. And since COVID, we've had a number of like terrible people returning to the theaters that just can't stay off their phone, can't stay quiet in a theater. I literally had to go up and talk to someone who was answering a phone call during West Side Story. So we need another movie that tells people to shut the hell up and watch the movie, or just leave, because you're not enjoying it if you're sitting there like that. Next one up is Don't Go to the Reunion. This is from Slasher Studios, and it's one of their limited edition 200 print runs of this movie. It's a super low budget independent movie. Kind of feels like one of those backyard productions at times, but it's, you know, I didn't like it that much, but it's admirable what they were able to accomplish on such a low budget. Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Got it because it was super cheap, and I'd heard people around me had grown up watching this one. I missed it. I think it's funnier at the beginning half than in the last half. I think it kind of struggles a little bit once they get past the macabre babysitter being dead portion. We've got Doom, and we've got Doom on 4K, because why not? I don't dislike this one as much as a lot of other people do. It definitely isn't great. The extended edition is cool, and I really like that finale shootout scene that we get. We also have Doom Annihilation. Now, this one is pretty bad. It's basically the same movie, but lower budget, and that was frustrating. I thought they were, like, planning on going in to make it good, you know, but they didn't. The Doors, Oliver Stone film. This was one, again, my wife was aware of it, really liked it when she was younger. I like the Doors music, so I figured I'd like the movie, and I did like the movie. Dope. Haven't seen this one. Had great reviews when it came out, though, and that's one of the reasons I own it. Another acquisition from I'm calling it an estate sale, I guess. Doris Day, The Essentials Collection. This is a Warner Brothers collection of 20 of her films. Right? Oh, 15 of her films. So this has, let's see. Romance on the High Seas, My Dream is Yours, It's a Great Feeling, Tea for Two, Lullaby of Broadway, On Moonlight Bay, April in Paris, By the Light of the Silvery Moon, Calamity Jane, Lucky Me, Love Me or Leave Me, The Pajama Game, Please Don't Eat the Daisies, Billy Rose's Jumbo, and The Glass Bottom Boat. Honestly, if you typed in romantic comedies from the 1950s into an AI machine, I think it would come up with more realistic sounding titles than most of the things in the Doris Day set. I have not seen a single one of those. In fact, I haven't heard of a single one of those prior to getting that set. But again, 15 movies from one performer in one slimmer box. Makes me excited to check it out. All right, up next we have Do the Right Thing. This is a movie I actually studied in college. It was for the longest time, it was the only Spike Lee movie that I really liked until like Black Klansman came out and then Defy Bloods, and I visited a few of his movies that I hadn't seen, just kind of missed in that middle section right there, and I definitely appreciate his direction. I think this is some of his absolute best work. Even though I'm more partial to Black Klansman, Do the Right Thing is, when you think about that movie being made in the time it was made, I think that's the bigger hat trick that he's got there. We have Double Indemnity, actually another movie I covered in the same film class. I'm not huge on this one just because it's just the genre of the film. I think it's a very well-made movie. It's just not really my speed on you know, the femme fatale kind of detective-y story. It didn't work for me as well. Oh, there's a made-for-TV movie on this as well. They did the remake. That's kind of cool. It's got both versions of the film. Yeah, I just happened upon a copy. I do want to revisit it because I've seen it a couple times now, and it just never really worked for me, even though I can't quantify why I'm not into it as much. I think it's very well made. All right, we've got Double Team, and this is a Menards sticker. I didn't buy this movie. I just acquired it from someone, but who goes into Menards and buys Double Team? Good question. Good question. We may never know the answer. We got a little bit of Dracula coming up here. So we've got the Dracula from 1979. This was the, who's the director of this one? John Badham, who did Saturday Night Fever. He did this one, and Frank Langella plays Dracula, and Laurence Olivier plays Van Helsing. This one is not talked about often, but I do like this one quite a bit. It kind of feels like America's answer to the Hammer franchise, and it does feel like you get something new at Dracula every 10 years if you just kind of wait it out. I've also got Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola directed film, on 4K. And then there's another pack, actually. I have another version of Bram Stoker's Dracula, but it comes with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the Kenneth Branagh directed film. And I actually just ordered a 4K of this from Arrow Video during a recent sale, so that should be coming in soon. And then this one will probably be disappearing because I'll have both films in 4K. More Dracula here. We have Dracula 2000, the trilogy. Did you know there was 3 of these? There's 3 of these! I bought it at Walmart because I'm one of those guys that likes franchises, especially horror franchises. There are 3 damn Dracula 2000 movies. So, I don't think anyone returns from the first one to the second one. But you have Dracula 2000, Dracula 2 Ascension. So they got rid of the 2000 and just called it Dracula 2. Ascension, and then Dracula 3 Legacy. And I think from the second film to the third one, you get Jason Scott Lee, Jason London, and Roy Scheider in both of those films. Yeah, Roy Scheider is in those Dracula sequels, and they're not good. And you know what? 2000 has its moments. I think it's got some great ideas. Not a great movie, but it's far and away better than those sequels. And what I think is absolutely, without a doubt, the most underrated Dracula film, Dracula Dead and Loving It. One of Mel Brooks's, I think, his final film as a director thus far. I would love to see him direct again, but he is 96, 97 years old. So Dracula Dead and Loving It, I watched it for the first time thinking it was a horror movie. Like a straight up horror movie. And the opening is very horrific. But every time I see a new version of Dracula, I revisit Dracula Dead and Loving It, because this movie's influences are so deep and so lovely and so intrinsically tied to Dracula on film. I just want to see a black and white version like he did with Young Frankenstein, but the studio didn't really that. So. All right. We have Draft Day, starring Kevin Costner, directed by Ivan Reitman, actually. Draft Day, I'm not a big, like, sports person for, like, live sports, but I like a good sports movie, and I've never seen one done like this, which all set during the draft day. It's all about making deals, about player picks, and trying to get the best ones. I think it's an incredibly engaging dramedy, and it's very thrilling, and yeah, Draft Day, I think, is a truly great sports film that is not discussed because it doesn't feature any actual games. We have Dragged Across Concrete. The director, S. Craig Zoller, did Bone Tomahawk and Brawl in Cell Block 99. I've seen Bone Tomahawk. I really liked that one. I like his extreme violence in his movies. And so that was definitely one that I wanted to check out. Haven't seen it yet, though. Drag Me to Hell. I got this one from Hollywood Video when they closed. It's just a history in my basement of movies that I have from closed down places. But Drag Me to Hell, always been a really good Sam Raimi film. Well, it's never reached the peaks of the Spider-Mans or the Evil Dead films. I think it's definitely like in that simmering middle section of like, more people should see this. I actually inherently missed it because I thought the title sounded terrible. It wasn't a very good piece of marketing for me, but Drag Me to Hell is very good. On the other idea of that, though, is Dragon Ball Evolution. And this is the Z edition. I don't know what that means, but this is Dragon Ball Evolution. This is one of my favorite bad movies. At least it was back when I used to watch it a lot more frequently in like 07, 08. You can make a good Dragon Ball movie. They just didn't get there here. I know it's possible. I know it can be done. That is a bad movie, and I bought it used, so I got what I needed to out of it. All right, up next we have a 4-pack here of Dragonheart films. So we have Dragonheart 1, we have Dragonheart A New Beginning, Dragonheart 3, The Sorcerer's Curse, Dragonheart Battle for the Hearthfire. And someone sent me like a disc for the other Dragonheart movie. Like, I think it's called Vengeance. Yeah, that's another thing where, like, did you know there was 5 Dragonhearts? Because there is. There's 5 Dragonhearts. I have yet to see any of them. But, again, a franchise that fits in a slim case and I can revisit it when I choose to. It's kind of my thing. All right, up next we have Dragon Slayer, a movie that I had digitally and then physically and digitally. I've got a lot of copies of Dragon Slayer. I think it was a movie I thought I hadn't seen when I bought it again, and I had seen it. Kind of a simplistic title, if you will. But Dragon Slayer is a cool little movie. We actually covered it on an episode of Kyle and Nick on Film. One of our most popular breakdown episodes was Dragon Slayer. I think it's a cool, oft-forgotten 80s fantasy. We've got some Dr. Dolittle movies here, including 1, 2, 3, and Hail to the Chief. I got it for the original not the original one, I guess, but the original Eddie Murphy original. Because I was watching that for some reason. There was somebody who had never seen it before, and we decided to watch it together. And so I picked up the whole 4-pack so that we could watch one movie. All right, Dreamcatcher. This was the first Stephen King book I ever read, was Dreamcatcher. I bought it because it was 900 pages, and the book was $5.99 at Target. So I thought to myself, the amount of money I can afford to buy a book for, I'm going to get a lot of book out of this. I mean, it is a daunting read. The paperback is 900 pages, but Dreamcatcher the movie, I also wanted to read the book before the movie came out. This was a movie edition. Had this poster on the front cover of the film, and we missed it in theaters because it didn't come to our theater. So we eventually, my mother and I went out and rented it, and I really like Dreamcatcher for like 90% of it. I wish the ending of this movie had been the ending of the book. The ending of the book gets really heady inside, you know, characters' brains and like ethereal, which would have been hard to translate to film, but that's your job when you're making a movie. So I wish Lawrence Kasdan had stuck to the original ending, because I think up until that point, I'm in love with that movie. So, all right, we've got Akira Kurosawa's Dreams. He's often talked about for his films like Yojimbo, Seven Samurai, Hidden Fortress, but not for movies like Dreams, which is kind of a anthological, dreamlike fantasy kind of narrative. I've never seen it before, but I had to pick it up because I heard Martin Scorsese's in it. Like, he's in it playing a character. So I always wanted to check that out. My favorite movie from last year, Dream Scenario with Nicolas Cage. I like Nicolas Cage in a lot of things, but he's not someone who I'm a diehard for. Recently, I think he's been picking some really incredible work. Between this film, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, voicing Spider-Man Noir, Mandy. I don't think Renfield's a great movie, but I'm happy that he did Dracula. I think it's a really cool thing. I was a big fan of Longlegs, which just came out. Cage has been picking some weird movies, and this is definitely a weird movie, produced by Ari Aster. It's about a man who finds himself appearing in dreams of people around the world, and so he becomes an overnight sensation. And it's so disturbing and strange, and it works for me. They use every single idea that can come out of that simplistic scenario, and they use it well. Dread. I got it for the 3D copy because it was 3D and 2D together. I've never actually seen this one, though. I've seen the 90s Judge Dredd, but not this new one. Dress to Kill. We covered this on our Road to De Palma series for patrons over on Kyle and Nick on Film, and so I had to get the Criterion edition for it because it's Criterion, and there was a chance I was going to end up with it anyway. All right, we have Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along blog. Again, Blockbuster. Got it. Blockbuster. This was a like 65-minute internet short film kind of thing that Joss Whedon did with his brothers, and he got basically Neil Patrick Harris and Nathan Fillion and Felicia Day to play these, like, it's a musical, but it's based on kind of a terrible villain. So Drillbit Taylor. I think this is a movie I convinced myself was good, and I've just never felt the need ever to rewatch it. So yeah, I probably don't need to rewatch it. We have Drive here. Nicholas Winding Refn. I love this movie. I don't care for a lot of his other works. I think this is one of his most simplistic, in a good way, films where it's just a great story, simple but done really well. I think he tends to get a little heady elsewhere and kind of loses focus on things. Like Neon Demon has some great ideas, some great visual appeal. I just don't think the movie's very good. We have a drive-in cult classic box set here. I haven't seen any of the movies in this, so we're just going to kind of pass by this one until I have something to say about it, maybe next year or the year after. But there's 32 movies, and I guess I'll hold it up here really quick. If this thing focuses well enough and you want to like read what's on there, then you can do that, I guess. But next time when we do another like refresh of these things, I'll probably talk about the ones I've actually seen from that set. I just haven't seen anything from it. So Drop Dead Gorgeous, Minnesota classic. Kind of playing around with the pageantry prior to Little Miss Sunshine doing it. It's one of those movies that makes a lot of fun of Minnesota, and I'm okay with that. It does it well, I feel. Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. I saw this for the first time last year, actually. We covered another interesting thing that we did for Kyle and Nick on Film's Patreon, which you can join over on that. You can get the link over on that channel. Is we did the top 5 movies we'd never seen before. So we picked 5 movies each that we hadn't seen, ranked them on how much we thought we would like them, and then we went away and watched those movies and came back and re-ranked them. So Dr. Strangelove was one of those I watched last year for the first time. And you know, Dr. Strangelove is one of those brilliant films, but I felt it was only necessary to put it alphabetically when I realized it would be with another brilliant film. This is Doodor's My Car. This was a like classic when I was a kid. When I was like 9 or 10, we watched Doodor's My Car a lot. I have rarely felt the need to go back to it. I I'm sure that I would find it a movie. All right, up next we have Duel. I actually didn't realize I have Duel. When the hell did I get Duel? Fantastic, I have Duel. I've never seen Duel. Dumb and Dumber. And yes, we also have Dumb and Dumber 2. Dumb and Dumber 2 has a couple really funny moments, but most of all, it's just kind of a disappointing sequel. And I really thought that was going to be the winner. I thought that would be the legacy comedy sequel that was going to do it, you know? All right, we've got Dumbo, the original 1940s classic that I didn't watch much. I didn't see as a kid, so it doesn't have a lot of holding to me. I do like the Dumbo live-action remake. It's, again, my big criticism of a lot of these movies is that the Disney remakes tend to just be the same movie over again. And that's not the case with the Dumbo one. It actually feels at times like a bit of a sequel. You know, it's kind of a weird thing. Dune. And we also have Dune Part 2. Dune Part 2 is currently my favorite movie of the year. So, what a great two-film collection. I would have been a little nervous if they hadn't made that Part 2, because Part 1 is very good. I love Part 1. I don't love where Part 1 ends. So if we never got the second film, I don't know that I'd be happy watching Part 1 very often. And my wife goes through those two movies all the time. So I will be watching those probably another 10 times this year. All right, Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Way better than it has any right to be. When I heard there was going to be a Dungeons and Dragons movie again after the really disappointing late 90s one that they had, and that they got the guys who, I mean, like, I like the directors of the film. You know, they did Game Night. I think they wrote versions of Spider-Man Homecoming, and I think they were involved in some point in the Flash film. I don't know if any of their work still remains, but like, I like them a lot. But like, they also wrote like the Vacation Legacy sequel, and so, but they've never done anything that was like on a big scale like this, and I wasn't really sure how to take it. But someone explained it to me that this movie is very much like how you imagine your D&D game night would go, as opposed to being a like super intense realistic take to, you know, the fantasy. It's actually more just goofy and silly, and a lot of people who play D&D have that kind of goofy, silly experience. So when someone explained it to me like that, I was like, oh, I'm so on board now. And the movie's really funny. We also have, closing off our Ds, we have Dunkirk. I saw this, I had that one in Blu-ray, just recently upgraded to 4K. I have a lot of Nolan's films on 4K now, which is great. Although I don't think there's a 4K for Prestige. Fix it. Fix it, world. But anyway, Dunkirk is fantastic. It is such a strange departure. It's more in line with Oppenheimer just because it's a true story, but even he plays with time a little bit in this one, and he sets 3 different events. I think one is like a week in time, and one is a day in time, and one is like an hour in time, and they basically jump back and forth, so it's not linearly speaking taking place at the same time. A cool idea. I would like to see it re-edited and done in the other form. I don't know if that would work. I don't know if that would be good or not. I just would like to see it. I'd be interested in checking it out, just only to compare the two takes that he has. But yes, those are the D movies in my physical media collection. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you have let's see, if you are watching this to the end, go ahead and comment down below Dragon Slayer to let me know that you made it all the way to the end of the Ds. That's the secret code for this episode. I've seen some other people doing that online. I think that's kind of cool. So let me know Dragon Slayer down below in the comments, and let me know of everything we've covered on this episode, some things you like, some things you didn't like. Feel free to comment. I love to have these conversations with viewers of the show, so thank you so much for joining me. We are just 5 episodes in to a 27 episode series, and we'll probably do TV shows after that, and maybe just like my larger box sets that I forgot to show off during their individual episodes. So thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.